Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today I'm here to give you 5 super short and super awesome fantasy book recommendations. So guys, it's officially cold here in Minnesota and I have been definitely ready for some cozy blanket short fantasy reads this last couple of weeks, and so I thought I would give you guys 5 super short and super awesome fantasy book recommendations. The first one is by an author that you guys are all going to find super familiar. However, it is shocking to me how many people don't know of or have not read this book, and that is Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. In this book we meet Shy, who is a forger artist who creates kind of magical forgeries of art, and she is imprisoned and she has to answer for some crimes. Shy is given the ultimatum by her captors that she needs to soul forge a new soul for the Emperor within a certain amount of time. And when I tell you that this tiny little book is jam-packed with everything we love about Brandon Sanderson's storytelling, this book, honestly, is one of my absolute favorites by Brandon Sanderson. And if you are a Sanderson fan and you haven't read this yet, go get it. If you've never read anything by Sanderson ever in your life, that's also fine, because this book is a beautiful little standalone with so much intrigue and beautiful descriptions of artwork. And Shy is honestly a fantastic protagonist, and it's just a great little book. Next up, I'm going to recommend Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis, and this one I'm recommending for you more like cerebral sci-fi kind of types of people. This book, I was surprised at how much I loved it. Think the whimsical, beautiful, incredible creature-based world that C.S. Lewis created in Narnia, but it's weird creatures out in space somewhere, and that's basically what you're gonna get in this story. In this book we meet Dr. Ransom, who is abducted and taken away to the red planet of Malacandra, where he is thrown into some very wild new cultures and has to try to survive on a planet that is wildly different from his own. But the beautiful part of this book is if you love very vivid, immersive descriptions of the environment, of creature interactions, this book is just chef's kiss. It's beautiful. I'm usually not a cerebral type reader, and I was surprised how much I loved this book, and as you can see, it is quite tiny. It is part of a series, however, in my opinion, this book easily stands alone if you want to read it by itself. Next up, I'm going to recommend Thrice by my friend Andrew Meredith. Definitely go check out my more full explanation of this book on my dedicated video review, which I will leave in the cards over there. This book takes a lot of inspiration from Slavic folklore, which you see in the world building and the creatures that are involved in this book. This is such a beautiful adventure fantasy. This is definitely the type of book that you'd want to get cozy in a blanket and read by a fire. It is a wholesome adventure story that follows the journey of Joven, who is kind of a has-been warrior, protector, father figure to Leaf, a little boy with way more magic than any little boy should have, and they are being pursued by dark forces who want to get their hands on Leaf's magic. Joven is ready to give his life to make sure that that doesn't happen, and they go on a journey to try to discover who's after them and why. As you can see, it's not a very long book, and because it's told in kind of an episodic storytelling format, it is a very quick page turner of a read. Now we're going to move a little bit more into the darker sphere of fantasy, and the first book that I'm going to recommend here is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Again, as you can see, it is a very tiny book. This book is low fantasy, so it takes place in our world in Sussex, England, and it is the story of a man who goes back to his childhood home and rediscovers something very incredible and wild that happened to him when he was a small boy. This book has some of the most intense descriptions of characters and action sequences and dark versus light and all sorts of amazing things that we all know Neil Gaiman is amazing at. Letty Hempstock is a young girl who was involved in all of the crazy that happened in the boy's childhood, and she is just a phenomenal character who is full of magic and so much mystery. Neil Gaiman, as always, pulls off a very dark but wholesome vibe, and this is a book that I would say is easily readable in one sitting if you're a fast reader. It's very hard to put down, but again, again, you get an incredible amount of story, detail, and character in one small package. My last recommendation is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. I recently read this book and it is now one of my absolute favorite self-published fantasy books on the planet. Never Die features a motley crew of characters in an Asian-inspired world. This motley crew is headed up by Ein, who is a small boy with a very dark and mysterious undertone to him, and his job is collecting these ancient heroes and bringing them along with him on his quest to kill an emperor. While this again has a lot of dark fantasy vibes, this is some of the most incredible, awesome motley crew character work I've seen in a fantasy book, especially one of this length. Rob J. Hayes takes us on an awesome adventure quest with so much heart, so much incredible motley crew character interaction. We get that beautiful world building and that Asian-inspired wuxia story feel in this novel. I absolutely love this book. I can't say enough about it. There's a lot of action, but there's a lot of very endearing character moments to go along with that. And this book is, again, a very fast read. It is very difficult to put down. Even though this book is part of a short series called The Mortal Techniques, you can still read it on its own, and it's a fabulous standalone. But if you love Never Die, you can follow it up with Pawn's Gambit, which is slightly longer, but still not an incredibly long read. And this one follows yet another motley crew that is headed up by a character that we do meet that's a side character in Never Die. So it's just enough familiarity to really get us settled into the world right away. But yeah, I love both of these books and highly recommend them as shorter fantasy reads. Those are my top 5 short fantasy reads for you guys. I would love to know in the comments if you've read any of those, if you like any of these books, and if you have any great short fantasy standalone recommendations in the comments below. I hope you all are having a fabulous week. I hope you are reading 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.